Velma's forgettable, even though Velma's the one that actually always solves the mystery, which I think people don't need a smart one. Pretty much is the legend. But the other thing is, since the dog talks, you know the kids were doing something in Mystery Van. A lot. Which is why they thought the dog... Well, wait! Okay. We're talking about Scooby-Doo. Someday I'll explain Scooby-Doo. Not tonight. I don't think I'll have time. I have a long list. First thing, as promised last episode, and we got a ton of email of people saying, please make sure you talk about this first thing next episode, because I promised them. I mean, I got almost as much mail as I get from the Harry Potter fans. And I, of course, continue to get email from the Harry Potter fans saying, please never talk about Harry Potter again. And I've kept up my side of the bargain. I have not talked about Harry Potter. You keep up your side of the bargain. Please stop sending me explosives. That said, okay, tonight, guys' movie night. First topic. Guys' movie night was invented by a friend of mine because we thought, you know, we as guys never actually get to see movies anymore because we have girls. And the girls never want to go see a guy movie. And a guy movie, as I've explained in the past, is a movie where things explode and people die, but only bad people die, and you never feel unhappy when anyone dies. Normally you go, yay, that someone has been killed in a horrible way, and then you get to the end and there's closure. And there's closure because the good guy has won and the bad guy has lost. And that's a guy movie. Girl movie, people have feelings, people die, and you feel bad about it, and you get to the end and life goes on. Guys hate life going on. Guys want things wrapped up because we're not big thinkers. You know, pretty much we've been here an hour and a half. We're done thinking about this. We don't want to think about it anymore. I mean, there are sequels. You know, Die Hard had sequels. They sucked, but it had them. So you could go back and think about the Die Hard guy again, but you didn't have to. You know, there was no compelling reason to go to a sequel. I mean, for the Star Wars series, there were reasons not to go to the sequels. Because you're like, man, that was a great movie. And then, you know, like 3 or 4 years later, you were like, man, that was an even better movie. And then like 3 years later, you were like, Ewoks? What's up with Ewoks? And then like 20 years later, you're like, oh God. And then 3 years after that, you're like, man, I didn't think it could get worse, but it got worse. And then finally you're like, oh, please, please don't make this movie any worse. Oh, that was terrible. The only good thing I heard about the whole Star Wars trilogy, the whole second trilogy thing, movies 1 through 3 that really sucked, is Kevin Smith famously came out and said, you know, everyone hated it that Darth Vader was pretty much, you know, angry 14-year-old idiot who, you know, took over the galaxy and acted very badly. But that's exactly who would do it. You know, some angry teenager that just wasn't understood. He'd be the guy with the lightsaber that would kill everyone else. And I kind of agree with that. Because I knew some teenagers that if we had lightsabers, we would have had trouble in the old high school. And speaking of high school, back to guys' movie night. So guys' movie night, once a month we go out to a movie that the guys can agree on seeing. And we invite the girls. We're like, hey, we're going to see this movie. And they always say, we're not. Because girls are generally smart. They can look at a trailer and go, that movie's not going to be very good. Or, I'm not going to enjoy watching that movie. And whereas we guys, we look at the trailer and go, that movie's not going to be very good. I'm going to really enjoy watching it. Because we like dumb movies. So we started this thing and we go out and see them. And we went and saw Hot Rod with Adam Sandberg. Didn't get much in the way of critical reviews. Didn't make much money, which we know because when we went and saw it, we sat in a huge theater and we were the only 3 people there. We would have been the only 4 people there, but Dave, who was one of us, got to the theater half an hour early and then 10 minutes before the show figured, oh, they're not coming, and left. Here's a tip. If you're going to guys' movie night, don't leave before the movie starts. You know, just wait, because we're going to get there. And if you leave, we're going to mock you on our television show. And then it's going to play once a year for the rest of your life. and it'll be on the internet, and we can point people to it and go, Dave is the idiot Keith is talking about it, like 5 minutes into the TV show. He left just before the movie was going to start because he didn't think anyone else was coming. Oh, and when we were leaving the theater after watching Hot Rod, which we thought was hilarious, but no one else did because there was no one else there. We thought it was funny, but as we're walking out in the back, there are 2 people not watching the movie. We don't know whether they thought it was hilarious or not. We don't even know if they knew there was a movie going on. But they were there. Hot Rod. Funny movie. I mean, it's just... I'll briefly synopsize it for you so you don't have to go. Because you don't want to go. I mean, if you catch this on cable TV, you might go, well, that's kind of funny. And if you can catch it in a dark room with a couple other guys that are all there to watch what they know is going to be a really dumb movie, it'll be hilarious. But it's not going to make a lot of money or anything because it's really not a good movie. Adam Sandberg is like a teenager and he plays a stuntman, or he's trying to be a stuntman because his dad was a famous stuntman. And he does the stupidest stunts possible on his moped, like trying to jump over things. I have a moped, you know, a little, it's pretty much a gasoline motor attached to bicycle wheels. Top speed, 35 miles an hour if you're going downhill with a tailwind. I bought it in college. I've kept it ever since because when I moved here to California, I drove it over to the DMV and said I need to get a license for this. And they said, that'll be $8. And I said, okay. And then they gave me a license, and it has that little thing in the upper corner where you put the year sticker. And I said, you know, I went back like a week later and went, you didn't give me a year sticker. And they said, oh, you don't need one. I said, how do I pay for it next year? And they're like, oh, no, it's $8 once. Okay, $8 once. I can drive a moped anywhere I want, forever. It's great. I mean, if I could find a way to get my car classified as a moped, it'd be fabulous. But anyway, Adam Sandberg being an idiot stuntman. It's a long movie. In the end, no one dies. But funny things happen along the way. Anyway, the prime reason I was talking about Guy Movie Night is the big movie we've seen is we went and saw Superbad. Now, Superbad is a teen movie, mostly. A little smarter than your average teen movie, but not much. Superbad has... Well, when I was watching Superbad, it's a funny movie, and we all greatly enjoyed Superbad as well. It's kind of like 2 nerds, 2 idiots in high school. They're seniors. It's near the end of their high school career. One of them is really smart. The other one, not so much. And the smart one is going off to MIT the next year. So this is kind of their last hurrah. They've just found out that they've been best friends forever. They're not going to be together in college, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they kind of think, well, we have to accomplish something with our lives, which I don't know why 17-year-olds think that. I mean, that's what your 30s are for. Maybe your 20s. Great. No one accomplishes anything when you're 14, okay? When you're 14, your accomplishment is I made it to the end of the school year and no one killed me. Because when I was 14, and that was a huge accomplishment for me, was not being killed by other people and not thinking that I was an idiot, which actually, I suppose I thought I was an idiot a lot in high school. So what are we going to do? Anyway, so it's the last year. They're best friends. They're not part of the in crowd, is probably the way to put it. Part of the out crowd. Part of the misfits, the not accepted people. So they're walking along and they get invited to a party because someone's parents are going out of town. So they're going to have a big party at that house that weekend. And kids, if your parents are going out of town, do not plan a big party at your house over the weekend because your parents are not idiots. They will know when they get back that you had a huge party because they're going to wonder, dear, was the recycling bin full of bottles when we left? No, it wasn't. I wonder, where would 77 Michelob bottles have come from? And then you're going to, as a teenager, going to come up with some excuse like, oh, I went out cleaning roads over the weekend and picked them up. And your parents are going to go, no, you didn't. You had a bunch of people over here. You're drinking Michelobs, hanging out in the pool, and then they're going to ground you. So it's much better to convince someone else to have a party at their house. Because then you just go, and then you come home, and then their parents ground them. Don't convince your girlfriend to have a party at her house. because she'll get grounded, and then you won't have a girlfriend for a while because she can't go anywhere. And so convince, maybe your girlfriend's best friend should have a party, because then you know you got to go because the girlfriend's going to invite her best friend, and you're going to go. You'll figure this out. There are instructions on the internet, I'm sure. Just, Google for how to plan a teen party, and I'm sure you'll find something. The first hit will be porn, of course. Never click on the first hit in any Google search result, unless it's Wikipedia. You can click on it if it's Wikipedia. You can't believe it, because, Wikipedia is riddled with errors. You should see the Keith Explains page. It's just tons of errors on that thing. It's scary. I'd fix them, but I'm not allowed to. Can't wait for that court order to expire. Anyway, Superbad. So the two of them are like, well, we got invited to this cool party, and they're like, well, maybe we could offer to bring the booze. I don't know why they do this. They don't have booze that I knew of. But one of their little dweeby friends apparently got a fake ID that very day. They're like, we'll get Fogel to buy us beer. I don't know why this seemed like a good idea. I was watching it. They were teenagers. They weren't thinking, really. They were just trying to find some way to get in good with the girls so that they could get in good with the girls. So they convinced Fogel. Fogel's got to take his fake ID and go out and buy beer. And Fogel is an even bigger idiot than the two of them. So he's gotten a fake ID that has the name McLovin on it as his sole name because he thinks it's cool. So he gets to the liquor store. He's trying to buy the fake booze. The person behind the counter doesn't believe that he's 24 because he looks 13. And no. But in the very middle of this, someone comes in and robs the liquor store. And the clerk flees. So now the police come and they're talking to people, and the two other kids outside the store see the police there. They assume that McFogel is being arrested for buying booze, when in fact McFogel is a witness to a crime. So the two kids abandon him. Fogel has all this booze. The police officers appear to be taken in by his fake ID, which Fogel can't understand, but they're like, hey, we'll give you a ride to where you're going. So Fogel gets in the police car, and they load it up with the booze, and they drive around. Now hilarity starts to ensue. And this is where it's a teen movie, so nothing actually in teen movies happens in real life. Let me give you an example from my childhood. War games. There are no supercomputers looking to destroy the world while simultaneously calling you up and offering to play chess. It does not happen. Nonetheless, that's pretty much the plot of war games. Let's see, other good ones. Risky business. Your parents do not go out of town. You do not have a party for 400 people at your house when none of the neighbors call the police. Trust me, you got 400 people at your house partying, all of them teenagers screaming loudly. Your next door neighbor is going to call the police, and you are going to have to explain to your parents what was going on. Generally over the phone, because the police are going to arrest you. And then you're going to have to call your mom in Cabo San Lucas and say, I'm in jail. And that's going to be bad. Again, get someone else to host the party. And then when you hear sirens, run out the back. Handy advice like this is why this show is top rated among the parents' councils. Oh, where was I going? Superbad. Anyway, so meanwhile, the main two idiots, have seen their best friend arrested. So now they've got to find some other way to get booze. So they end up at this party for 20-somethings, and they try to steal booze from there, and they're running around, and it's nighttime, and the first guy with the cops is going everywhere, and the cops are like treating him like an adult and being funny, and the cops are getting drunk and doing things cops really don't do. God, I hope. I hope there are no police. I hope there are no real policemen like these cops. I'm afraid there are, but I don't think so. Because they'd get thrown off the force pretty quickly. And in the end, everything kind of climaxes at the big party when the kids finally get there and they manage to get the booze from McLovin, and they, it's plot goes up. In the end, each guy gets his girl, but not in the way you'd think. In kind of a touching way, which vaguely made it wrong for a guy's movie. Because I got to the end and I was happy, but wasn't quite sure why I was happy, because no one had been killed and nothing had exploded. But Superbad was a good movie. And as I was saying, it reminded me of teen movies. primarily when I walked out of there and I realized, I have seen a bunch of teen movies in my life, mostly when I was a teen, because they make these things every couple of years. And I guess they do it because teenagers go to see a lot of movies. Now, I personally didn't go to see a lot of movies when I was young because I lived a sheltered existence and my parents hated me. And they therefore did not give me money to go to the movies. The one movie I do remember from when I was very young is my brother wanted to go see Conan. And I think I was about 14 or 15 at the time, and I think he was 11. Maybe 12. So he and his friends wanted to go to Conan. I really didn't care about going to see Conan, but I'm sitting in my house, and my brother comes in and goes, "Yeah, they wouldn't let us in." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're like 11. And he was like, "But I bet you can get us in." And I'm 14, and he's thinking, "Oh, yeah, that'll count as an adult." So we walked back up the block to the theater, and I walked up and said, "Hi, 4 tickets for Conan." And the guy said, "I need to see an ID." And like the only ID I had was a school ID because, I was 14. You can't drive. So I'm like, and he's like, no, you're not coming in to see Conan. And later I saw Conan, and now I know why. A lot of breasts in that film, and you can't have 14-year-olds seeing breasts. I don't know why. I think it drives them mad. Something like that. Anyway, so they, Conan, didn't see it until later in my life. Not a good movie anyway. No, not really. What other famous teen movies I remember? Later in life, here's another one. Tom Cruise had a movie called, I think, All the Right Moves, which I think I and some girl I was kind of seeing in high school went to. And by kind of seeing, I think we were in the same gym class, and I think she kind of liked me and I kind of liked her, but we had no idea what to do. So we went to the movies a couple times and then never talked again. Yeah. I know what to do. Anyway, so we bought our tickets and we went off to see, Tom Cruise, All the Right Moves. I think it was, like the opening weekend or something. It's Saturday night. The theater wasn't that full. So we sat down, and in front of us there was a nice older couple had come in to see the movie. And the movie started, and it's, I don't know, something about football, Tom Cruise, Philadelphia, Steel Town, something, blah, blah, blah. And about 10 minutes in, there's a naked scene with Tom Cruise and his girlfriend. And as soon as it started, the nice couple in front of me, you could see this happen. Kind of the woman leaned over and went, and the guy went. And then she, and then they both stood up and left the theater. I'm like, okay, guess this wasn't the kind of movie you were expecting. And I don't remember anything else about that movie. I mean, I remember Tom Cruise, something about football, but I probably remember that because of the name, All the Right Moves, football, something, something, something. And I remember some couple leaving because it's pornographic or something. I don't remember. And they made a lot of noise as they left. So I missed a lot of the naked part. Which was probably the only reason I'd gone. I'm assuming. I don't remember. And not a good movie. What else? There was Breakfast Club. I remember watching Breakfast Club when I was young. Breakfast Club is, a bunch of loners go to school and have to spend a whole Saturday in detention. And at the end of the day, they've all learned something, I think. I don't remember what they've learned. Mostly, I think they've learned they don't want to spend all day at school in detention on a Saturday. And I'll have to say, I really never had detention in school. I know this surprises you because you're thinking, Keith, you're a rebel. I'd assume that you were, under investigation by the school authorities constantly. No, surprisingly not. I was actually in the AV club, so I was frequently at school early, so I could take my key and go open the room that had the TVs in it, so I could push them down to the rooms where they wanted to show, a TV program, and hook them up. And then I'd be at school late because I'd have to go get the TVs and push them back to the storerooms and unscrew them and go down to the AV room and plug things together. I used to run the films in the theater. So, you know, we all had to get permission slips so we could see Romeo and Juliet. Because as you know, in Romeo and Juliet, there's a very, very brief scene where you see the back of Juliet and she doesn't have a top on. And it's critically important that you get permission from all the parents before you show that to the 14-year-olds in 8th grade in Racine, Wisconsin, the sole town in Wisconsin, which sued the rest of the state so they wouldn't have to teach sex ed. Yeah, I grew up in a conservative place. But now, so I used to run the films, so I'd be like up in the little film room. Now, you kids today have no idea what films are in school because just everything's on video now. Like, I don't even know why they have theaters in schools. I suppose for plays, because you can't do plays on tapes. But I really doubt there are any big assemblies where they're showing films anymore because it's all on video. Or DVD. It's probably not even on tape anymore. It's all on DVDs, isn't it? It's crazy. It's crazy. Now, when all the kids today grow up, they're going to be like, when we were young, we had DVDs. They were these shiny things. And you could like be a program on it. Like, you kids today have the cubes, the tiny cubes. You plug them in, they got all the programs produced in the last 19 years. And they're all cross-indexed. And they can translate automatically into Chinese if you want. It'll be great. The future, it's not going to suck, is my thought. God, I hope it doesn't, because if the future sucks, I've wasted my life, really. Anyway, so teen movies. What other good teen movies I remember? Porky's. Porky's was huge when I went to high school. Everyone I knew watched Porky's. I didn't watch Porky's. I didn't see Porky's till years later, and then I went, that's like one of the dumbest movies ever. But like they could not stop talking about it. And it was like, yeah, we snuck in to see it again. And I never snuck into movies. Well, first of all, I didn't go out at night because I'm like a reverse vampire. I fear darkness. But, you know, I didn't have a car. I didn't have any friends, really, that would go out to movies at night. And I didn't really want to go out and see movies at night because I had a computer at home. I could program the computer. It was so much more fun than sneaking into Porky's, I'm thinking. But we didn't have the internet. So, yeah, I know what you're thinking. Computers could exist without the internet. I mean, they weren't as fun. And porn was a lot harder to come by because you'd have to download it over a 1200 baud modem. Very slow, very slow. But no, there were these kids in school that just kept talking about how funny. Porky's was one movie that I remember. I had it explained to me so many times that when I finally saw it, I thought there was a different Porky's movie that they had gone to see from the one I had seen. Because they were like, yeah, all these great scenes. And then I remembered, well, yeah, I guess if all you think about is the naked people in Porky's, then that's the movie I heard about, which I had assumed was pretty much 2 hours of solid naked. But in reality, it's probably like 2 minutes of naked, surrounded by, 94 minutes of stupid. Really incredibly stupid is what it was. What else? Someone else mentioned this on the way over. Last American Virgin. I remember seeing that when I was in high school. I don't know why. I think a different girl that I had a crush on and who liked one of my friends went with me when I went with my friend and his girlfriend because she wanted to be next to my friend to take him away from his girlfriend. It was all very complicated. I didn't understand girls at all in high school. I kind of in high school assumed girls were rational creatures. And it was not a good assumption. Not at all. I mean, I guess guys weren't rational either, but I understood how guys were dumb. I didn't get how girls were dumb at all. There were all these subtle politics happening at the lunch table that people would come to me afterward lunch and go, did you see what she did to him? And I'd go, no, I didn't. I guess they weren't talking, were they? And they'd be like, yeah, they always talk. And I'd be like, yeah, I gotta go. thing I remember about Last American Virgin is there's a girl, and she kind of likes a guy who's terrible to her, and there's another guy who's got a crush on her who's really nice, and the terrible guy does something terrible to her, and eventually she gets pregnant and has to have an abortion, and the terrible guy dumps her, and the nice guy takes her to get an abortion, and then she goes back to the terrible guy. And I recall at the time this had happened to, not that, but girl had dumped a friend of mine, who I thought was a nice guy, to go back to her terrible boyfriend. And I thought, well, that's horrible. And then I saw this movie and I thought, well, it's horrible up there too. Girls must not understand what they're doing. I agree. I was young. I was stupid. Tugged at my heartstrings is what I'm saying. It was very... I'm going to stop talking about movies. Otherwise, people are going to write in and go, Keith, that show where all you talked about was teen movies sucked. See, whereas this way, if I talk about something else briefly, it'll be that show where all you talked about was movies and that other stuff sucked. So here we go. Astronauts. I can remember this. So I'm watching TV last night. They had Jim Lovell on the Colbert Report. And Jim Lovell was the guy who, in Apollo 8, circled the moon when we were still reconnoitering, make sure it wasn't made of cheese. And then we landed on the moon. And then a couple missions later, he was supposed to go up and land on the moon. And then he got halfway there. And then Apollo 13 exploded. And then they were all going to die. But they didn't die because they knew how to make a carbon filter out of pocket lint, I guess. So they managed to land him successfully, but they didn't manage to land on the moon. They had to just bring him straight back. And then he never went into space again. So he's like a guy that went around the moon twice and never landed, which just gotta suck. I mean, you gotta think he just wakes up at like 2 in the morning. He's like, I was that close! I was that freaking close! And he's saying there's 16 people that have ever been up that close to the moon. Left the planet, landed on the moon, circled the moon, whatever. And I'm thinking 16 people. See, someday there's going to be 15 people, and there's going to be 14 people. And someday we're going to have nobody that's ever been to the moon. And then no one's going to believe we went there. Except we have that laser marker you can bounce crap off. I guess we could. But see, we got to find some way to fix this problem. I don't know what it is. I don't have enough time to explain how to fix it anyway. But really, astronauts, cool, cool, cool. Not like me as a child. Astronauts, cool. I'm out of time. See, they're holding up the rap sign. So I guess next time. Well, I'll figure something to talk about next time. See, I spent too much time talking about movies, didn't I? Did I talk about Wednesday at all? Did I talk about Wednesday? What does that mean? Yes, the 500. And the pirate account. Arrgh! You went to Wednesday. When you go to Wednesday, you got to dress up. You got to dress up for security. So I was trying to think who would I dress up as. I'm thinking a pirate. And that's what people think of when they think of Keith.